This is Fearless Leadership with Brendan Keegan, a production of Forbes Books. Conversations with leaders who provide valuable, candid insights from their journeys and share their secrets to what made them successful and fearless.
This week's Fearless Leader is Chad Gundersen. Chad has spent decades working in the entertainment business, and he is currently the co-owner of Fort Worth-based production company Out of Order Studios. He's independently produced dozens of films and TV series that we're going to talk about over the next half hour. So Chad, welcome to the podcast today.
Thanks, Brendan. Thanks for having me, man.
Hey, so I'm going to start this off real simple. So Chad, you were a kid born in Blair, Nebraska. You grew up in Roanoke, Texas, and you became a Hollywood producer. Just tell me about that.
Well, I don't think I've ever actually heard it put that way. So that makes it, I don't know if that makes it cool or not cool or intimidating. I don't know. So yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I honestly didn't even grow up wanting to be a filmmaker. Now, I definitely can look back at a lot of things that I did that I kind of realized, oh, okay, well, maybe the path was being laid that I didn't even know. Moved to Texas and to Roanoke when I was 2. So I was born in Blair, Nebraska. I jokingly say I wasn't born in Texas, but I got there as quick as I could. Growing up, very small town. High school, even most of college, played a lot of sports. I went on to play football and volleyball in college. And to be honest with you, not that I ever felt that I was going to go to the next level, but I always felt that the sports world would be where I would end up. College years were spent studying biology. So sports medicine was really the path that I was going out of high school and getting into college. Looking back, though, I can definitely kind of say there were things that were happening that kind of led to this. Did a lot of theater in high school, a lot of plays, did some print work, and so kind of more on the acting side, acted in some commercials. And again, more just kind of, oh, this would be fun, this would be cool, again, on the acting side. So did enough to, make a few bucks and to do it in a way that there was a little bit of recognition. So in college, was in college initially out in California. I went to Pomona College out in Orange County to play football, ended up making their volleyball team as well. But very kind of quickly realized that sports was not really kind of in the future for me. And it wasn't about that. I was starting as a freshman. It was all good. So it wasn't about that, but just kind of that love of the game kind of went away. And so it was just kind of a weird transition thing for me to start moving away from sports. Obviously, when I quit football, the money disappeared, so couldn't stay in California. But even while I was in California, going back to that kind of doing a little acting here and there, I was an extra in a couple of big films out there in Hollywood. So I remember being on set a few times. And honestly, even then, I can think back and kind of go, I remember sitting on the set of the film Grosse Pointe Blank with John Cusack. It's about a high school reunion, and I was one of the high school people there. So I'm in the background of that, all those scenes. But I remember sitting there kind of going, oh, this is like a career. Like people do this for a living. And I was probably really even thinking about extras. Like there's people that literally that's what they do for a living. They're an extra full-time. That's what they do as a job, is they're extras in movies and television shows all the time. But just kind of being on a larger Hollywood set, kind of going, okay, this is different. This is more than I'd ever been exposed to, doing the little commercials or independent things that I'd done back in Texas. So that was kind of the first time I kind of remember kind of, scratching my head going, oh, this is interesting. Ended up back in Texas, I was going to go down to Texas A&M with my brother. My brother's 2 years older than me. He was still down at Texas A&M. I had thought about going to A&M before, so I was going to go, I'm going back to Texas, might as well go to A&M with my brother. Great biology department, great path, if that's the path I wanted to stay on. But at that point, I was a transfer student, not a new student. And a new student, you could just kind of go in. But as a transfer, I needed so many credits before I could transfer. And literally, I was like 1 credit shy of being able to transfer into A&M. So I ended up going to the University of North Texas, is right here in the DFW area, and was going to end up transferring later down the line. But my first semester at the University of North Texas, I got cast as an actor in like 4 of the student films. UNT, University of North Texas, they have a large film department, huge liberal arts school, big arts department, big jazz department, big theater, film department, all those things. So again, on the acting side of things, I kind of said, oh, well, I'll go do this. Ended up auditioning and getting cast in a bunch of short films that the seniors and stuff are making. And within that, again, kind of that little bell went off of going, well, this is interesting. So probably a year after that, and this literally was kind of on a whim, I ended up starting my first company, my first production company in college, with a gentleman by the name of Joe Scott. We started a company called Night and Day Films. And again, there wasn't a whole lot of thought into this outside of, hey, let's go do things. Let's go make things. And as Night and Day Films, music videos, corporate things, commercials, mom and pop shop things, literally anything we could point a camera at and shoot. And within that process of doing this, so Joe, he was kind of a writer director, the creative side of it. And I, at the time, was just the actor. And so I was the guy holding the burrito. I was the voiceover guy. I was whatever in the commercials that we were making. But by default, our company did not have a quote unquote producer, a kind of leader, somebody just organizing the entire thing. And so I kind of took those things on by default. And it's kind of just in my personality to kind of do that. Playing sports, I was always a leader. I was always a captain. I was always kind of those things. I had done a lot of things in youth with church and various other things. So I was always kind of a natural leader anyways. So I kind of just took on that role kind of almost haphazardly. And in that process, that's when I started going, wait a minute, I think this is what I want to do. And so within all of those processes, still was a biology major, had not changed into film yet, even though I had started a company. And then my senior year of college, I finally switched from biology to film, got a degree in film. I basically have a degree in biology, just not a piece of paper that says I have a degree in biology. But that was kind of the start of it. And that's where Night and Day Films came from. And then from there, just started producing a lot of things. So I do remember one comment, and this is kind of what kept me into the film side of things. We were getting all these commercials, and I was at this company in Dallas, and they were one of the largest ad agencies in Dallas, and honestly, kind of globally, and done a lot of very large brands and stuff like that. And we had done a couple of commercials that caught the attention of these guys. Then they kind of said, hey, you guys come in, maybe we have some work for you. We've got some smaller clients, and maybe you could grow. And I remember sitting in this executive's office, and he said, what's the goal? What do you want to do? And, you kind of go, well, I'm here to make commercials for you. And this is awesome. And this is cool. And we just, of course, then said, well, we want to make movies. We want to do TV shows. We want to do all this big stuff. And he looked at us and he goes, then don't do this commercial. Don't make this commercial. Because he said, if you make this commercial work and film work are very, very different, and you'll get sucked into this world. And commercials are great. You can make a lot of money and you can do them, but it is a burning and churning and going and blowing type thing. And he said, you will never have time to make feature films, TV shows, or anything like that. Now, 25, almost 30 years later, I can look back at that and go, that was a turning point for me to say, I want to make movies. This is what I want to do. I want to make movies and television. And I have a lot of friends that say that exact thing. I make a ton of commercials. I do all these things. And I never have time to go make movies. If I had time, if I could find the time to get off, but I've got to keep making commercials to keep paying my bills. And I never have time to do that. And so those are a few kind of markers that kind of got me to this point. And here we are now, a long time later. Things are going pretty well.
So Chad, if I were to hire you right now to make a short film for me for young kids out there in college that think they're going to do one thing and go in another direction, and I said, I want it to be Chad the biologist. What would Chad the biologist be doing now, you think? Let's just play this game. What would Chad the biologist be doing now if you hadn't got this passion for film? What would your biology life look like?
I would hope it would be involved with sports somewhere. I guess in the ideal world, I'd be working maybe for a professional team, probably football. That's my game, volleyball as well. And so one of those. So some sort of sports medicine. I never really saw myself as a surgeon or anything like that. So probably some sort of physical therapy, sports therapy, rehab, something like that. I've rolled my ankles more times than not, so I can rehab an ankle like no other. So yeah, I would say that would be it. Some sort of a sports doctor at some level, because that was always the goal. And so that's probably the only way I would be able to envision it. going? Good question.
I got to tell you, I got to tell you, when you were telling me you were biology, I personally had you in Antarctica. I had the big Parker on. I had you, like drilling into ice caps, trying to see like was it melting, and maybe saving some penguins up there too. So not your thing, but I think it's really important for people to realize, when you're 18 and 19 and 20, those are early years to really know what you want to do, and life isn't a straight line, and it takes time to figure out what your passions are, what you really want to do. And so let's flip back over to films, because I think something that's interesting is I've kind of followed your career is since the start of your career, after you get past the commercials and you get some good sage advice there. Since the very first time I met you, you were very focused on what's called in the industry faith-based films. So what made you focus on that part of filmmaking?
Well, obviously, just having my own faith, my own Christian faith, obviously that drives a lot of people. Whatever their faith is, that obviously drives a lot of decisions I think that people make. And so for me, as a Christian, that was just something that kind of naturally I gravitated to. But I think if anything, one of the bigger things is, and I say this as respectfully as possible, I can't stand crappy Christian films. Like it drove me crazy. Like why do they have to be bad? Why do they have to be acted poorly, written poorly, produced poorly, all of those things? So it was almost kind of this underlying drive, this underlying desire to go, and even as the Bible says, go do all things in excellence. And so I was always kind of like, well, why can't they be better? Why do they have to look and feel and be different? And that's not to say that that's honestly not an industry thing. I mean, literally go pick the genre and you can find bad writing, bad acting, bad all the things, right? Whether it's a weird little horror film or a little rom-com, type movie. There's plenty of those out there. So it's not necessarily the genre, but just because that was a genre of a faith that I held, that was the desire to do that. And so the desire for me was to change that, was to be a part of that evolution of it. And to be honest with you, as I was coming out of college, that kind of evolution was already happening within the Christian music world. We were seeing that. There were these Christian artists, these Christian musical artists that were out there playing mainstream. Like there was this band I followed at the time, and he was on the Ozfest tour with Ozzy Osbourne. Like this band, they were such a great metal band, but they were touring with Ozzy Osbourne, and obviously it was Ozzy Osbourne and Metallica and all these people, right, that toured on these big tours. And that was kind of the thing going, well, wait a minute, if the music can do it, why is film and television and all that so far behind? So that was a desire for me to kind of change that. And I feel I've done it on certain levels with the films and stuff that I've done in the past. But I think The Chosen that we're currently doing is finally kind of the crescendo of that, like, okay, here's what it should be. This is what we should be doing. And so obviously that's been a big driving force behind being in the faith space. And it's not that I wouldn't do other projects, and I have done other projects. It's just that was kind of a desire to do that and to be in that. And then once I made a film, once I produced my first film, honestly, I kind of got sought after to go and help others produce things at a higher level. I kind of became that guy to say, I can help you make your best film you made. Now, it still may be a little cheesy, it still may be low budget, but it's at least better than what those directors or those other filmmakers had done. And that kind of became my thing. Have Chad come in and he can help you get to that next level. And obviously it kind of just continued to grow from there.
So you talked about The Chosen, and I want to get to that in a few minutes. But before there, I want to keep on the journey, along your career. And hey, you talked about part of the reason you wanted to do the faith-based films was your background in your faith, but also you want to take it to a higher level. I can tell you, I love movies, and during COVID, I literally hit the end of Netflix. I think I saw everything on Netflix, and I can attest there's crappy stuff across every genre. Especially, there's nothing worse than maybe a bad action thriller where the stunts are just horrible. But let's jump to your first feature. It was Midnight Clear.
Yep.
Dallas Jenkins was involved. You brought one of the Baldwin brothers in, Stephen Baldwin. Like, walk me through how did all that come together?
So coming out of college, there was this big Christian book series called the Left Behind series, and it was a huge massive bestseller. I think there was 12 or more books in this series of books. And it basically was a fictionalized version of kind of the quote unquote end times, right? When the rapture happens, everybody goes to heaven, everybody's left behind, and all these different things, right? So it was this massive book coming out of college, and that's a big thing. And right, that half, if not more, of the movies out there are based on best-selling books, right? I mean, that's just kind of most movies, right? It's either, obviously, you can make something up, but a lot of movies out there are based on best-selling books. So coming out of college and reading that book series, I literally wrote a fan letter. And again, hand wrote it. Didn't type it, didn't do any of that. I hand wrote a fan letter to one of the authors by the name of Jerry Jenkins. And oddly enough, Jerry Jenkins responded. And in my letter, I just said, hey, I'm a recent film graduate. If these books ever get made into a movie, I would love to be a part somehow. And again, Jerry wrote me back. Now, again, these books, I think, sold 80 million copies, 100 million copies, something crazy like that. So the fact that Jerry wrote me back, it was kind of like, well, didn't see that coming, wasn't expecting that. And he said in his letter, well, it's funny you say that. These books are, in fact, being optioned to be made into a movie. And my son, Dallas Jenkins, is also a recent film student. Dallas is a year or two older than me. And he's working with the company that's making these books into a movie. So here's his information. Here's his phone number. Reach out to him, see what he says. And again, kind of like, oh, okay. That, again, not expecting any of that to happen. So Dallas and I kind of struck up conversation, struck up a friendship. Long story short on that, Dallas and his dad kind of separated from that, and those movies became what they became. And again, not a desire of Dallas or his dad's either for them to do what they did. And so again, that's kind of a whole separate story. But through that, Dallas left. They started their own company, and Dallas and I just stayed in touch. What are you doing? What are you working on? How can we be involved? Dallas comes to me one day and says, hey, I'm directing my first short film out in LA. I already have a producer, so unfortunately I don't need any help there. But, if you're interested, if you just want to come and be a part, then you can. And again, I'm probably 24, 25 maybe at that point. And I'm like, well, heck yeah. Like, what do I got to do? And so I literally flew myself out to LA. I slept on his hotel room floor. I had a buddy that lived in LA, so I stayed with him a couple of nights, but just kind of literally came out as an unpaid intern / PA, right? And a PA is a production assistant, kind of the lowest rung within the film world of the PAs. So I came out as that, and unpaid on top of that. Just came out just to be a part to, hey, cool. And you just do that when you're that age, right? And we even have interns and stuff like that on the shows we do now. But that's just what you do, right? You go and get your foot in the door, so to speak. By the end of that short film, which was a short film called Cliche, I was a co-producer on the show. Basically, throughout the process of shooting, post-production, all these different things, I just kind of continued to help and bring value on enough levels where Dallas is like, man, I want to make you a co-producer on this. Like, you've done the work, you've been a part, and you've helped make this project what it is. So not long after that, Dallas came back to me and said, hey, I'm going to do another short film. It's based on one of my dad's short stories that he wrote. And it's a short film, and it's called Midnight Clear. And this was a short film version. So there is a short film version of Midnight Clear out there with Stephen Baldwin. Dallas had met Stephen Baldwin. I think Stephen, who's also a believer, read the books, the Left Behind books, and so reached out to Jerry. Jerry connected me with Dallas, all those things. So we did a short film called Midnight Clear with Stephen Baldwin in it, a little 10-minute short film. And then based on the success of that short film, we went and made Midnight Clear as a feature film in very short time, less than a year later. And so Midnight Clear was Dallas's first feature film as a director, and it was my first feature film as a producer. And that's how Stephen got involved. I stay in touch with Stephen today, even today. And literally kind of what I was saying earlier, that was the start. After I made that feature film, it was call after call after call, and I just kind of kept making movies and kind of kept going there. So that's kind of how the whole feature film launched. We made Midnight Clear, the feature, in 2005, and Dallas and I have not worked together since 2005 until The Chosen. We've stayed in touch. What are you doing? What are you working on? How do we work together again? And just nothing ever happened until The Chosen came along, and he approached me at the end of 2017 and 2018, and that's when we got to The Chosen. But again, hadn't done anything together in that almost 20-year span between the two. So.
Yeah, well, I think a few more things to to walk away with from listening to your story, is first the initiative you took when you read that book series to really reach out. There's lots of people that have dreams that want to do things, but don't do it. Don't take that
Right.
first step. Don't put themselves in the game. And it's like, do you participate or do you spectate? And then just you kept that relationship alive. And so let's jump to The Chosen. So in talking with you, I've heard you talk about the Chosen being the pinnacle of your career, and it's a series that portrays Jesus through the eyes of those who met him. And from what I understand, your viewers have contributed over $40 million towards its production, making it the most successful crowdfunded TV project ever. So can you talk to me a little bit about the crowdfunding aspect, how it came together, and then talk to me a little bit about The Chosen?
Well, I mean, I'll be the first to say that I don't think crowdfunding works at all. Like straight up, like I just, I've always kind of laughed at it over the years. I'm sure other people think that as well. But when Dallas approached me, so Dallas called me up, and again, this would have been back in end of 2017. And he basically said, hey, so Dallas at the time was working at a church up in Chicago, and he was kind of the head of their media department, a big mega church up in Chicago. And multiple times a year, they would make short films. So Dallas, as a director and a writer, was making these short films for the church. Well, one of the short films that he did was called The Shepherd. And The Shepherd is kind of the starting point of The Chosen. And it's that same concept, a very biblical story told from a different perspective, not the typical perspective that you would always see most Bible stories told in. And so this short film that he made, The Shepherd, kind of just started grabbing the attention of a lot of different people. And some of those people were a distributor. One of them was this guy that's a huge social media. He basically makes influencers. That's kind of what he does. Like, he's got some of the biggest YouTube presences out there. And so that's kind of his big thing, is that. And so these guys approached Dallas and said, hey, we love this short film. We want to make it into a series. And what are your thoughts? And we want to crowdfund it. Dallas is like, okay, that you lost me there at the end. But they convinced him to at least start pushing towards this. So Dallas approached me and said, hey, we're talking about doing this series. It's a vision that I've always had, to do a TV series, because most things on Jesus are just like a single film or maybe a limited series, like a 3-part series or something like that. But he wanted to do this TV series. And then he kind of goes, and kind of even laughingly kind of goes, and we're going to crowdfund it. And I was like, okay, well, there's, you lost me as well there, this crowdfunding thing. But these geniuses behind it, the other producers, the owners in the film and in the project, they kind of were like, no, it's going to work. We're going to make it happen. And so sure enough, they started this campaign, this crowdfunding campaign. And in season 1, we raised over $10 million in crowdfunding to do season 1, and it became the largest crowdfunded media project ever. There were 2 other films that had maybe raised, I don't know, 5-6 million, and that was kind of the highest ever of crowdfunded projects. So we almost doubled those projects in the crowdfunding that we had done. And then since then, the show obviously has taken off and become what it has. And while we don't do equity crowdfunding anymore, we have a model that's called Pay It Forward. And basically, The Chosen is free. The Chosen will always be free. It's a goal that Dallas has had and the other producers have had, to always have the show be free and to make it go global. We want more than 1 billion people to watch it, and we're approaching that every day to get that many people to see the show. But in order to do it free, it isn't free to make. So basically it came to these things where people were just so excited to be a part of it. They kind of started asking, well, how can we help? What can we do? And this Pay It Forward thing came to be. And that's kind of what really launched the project. And obviously, it just continued to raise money through this Pay It Forward. And so you don't have to give money. You don't have to be a part of that. You can watch it for free. And I think statistically only about 5% of our audience actually does some sort of Pay It Forward, some sort of giving to the show. And so that shows how big it is. But obviously we're also raising a lot of money because these shows aren't cheap, right? And I would say that The Chosen is probably half the budget, maybe even a little less than half. If this show was on Netflix our budgets would be triple, if not quadruple what they are. And that's just kind of standard. And that's not even spending too much, but it's something that is a reality. And we don't ever see our budgets getting that high. But obviously the success of where we're at has kind of gotten there. But we just have an audience that wants it. They've been desiring stuff for this like a long time. And it's been nothing short of humbling to be a part of it.
You just talked about, the distribution. So The Chosen's, actually available on streaming platforms. So what are the advantages to shows being on things like Amazon Prime or Peacock as opposed to kind of the traditional linear TV model?
Well, like I said, our show will always be free. So the biggest place that people see our show is through the app, right? We have a Chosen app, and that's where everybody goes and watches the show. And the app that we have is very advanced, and it does amazing things, and it's very easily streamed straight to your TV, so you can watch it on the big screen and not have to watch it on a laptop or whatever. But obviously, we've also had others that have come along. You mentioned Amazon. The show is on Amazon. Season 1 and 2 are on Amazon. Peacock, we're on there, and then there's multiple other digital platforms, and those are just license deals, right? So there's kind of two ways that these streamers work. We'll use Netflix as an example, right? You always see Netflix original. Well, if it's a Netflix original, Netflix funded that project and it belongs to Netflix, and most likely it only exists on the Netflix platform. You won't see it anywhere else. Now, on the flip of that, you can license shows. So again, pick the TV show, pick the movie, and you can license it, and then you can watch it on multiple platforms. Amazon grabbed it, Netflix grabbed it, Hulu grabbed it. They all did it, but they just licensed it, and that's obviously a lot less money to just license something. And so we have license deals in place for all of these shows, or on all of these platforms for our show, and so that's been a big part of it as well. And now it's funny because, especially in the faith space, right? It's no secret that Hollywood is not a big fan of anything faith-based. They're just not. And that's fine. It's no big deal. It doesn't bother us one way or another. But I also find it funny now, all of a sudden, they definitely have come a-knocking. And they're kind of like, hey, what are y'all going to do? What are your plans? And they honestly don't understand how it works either. They're kind of very scratching their heads going, wait a minute, you give the show away for free and yet you make a lot of money? Like we like to make a lot of money part. That's great. And that's cool. And obviously you need the money to make the show and to do that and make it successful. But then how do you give it away for free? So it's just very much a conundrum for them. But they wouldn't listen to us 2 seasons ago. And now that we're rolling into season 3, now all of a sudden the phone's ringing a few more times and all that. But we've obviously established something, and Dallas with his team and the writers, we've got something that's pretty amazing and pretty special. And so we're excited. Not saying that we wouldn't find some sort of partnership with one of those platforms. When we went on Peacock, we were the #1 show on Peacock. We actually outperformed Yellowstone when we were on Peacock, and we're still there. But at the time when we premiered on Peacock, we were the #1 show on Peacock over Yellowstone, which obviously is a massive show. And so, our popularity is right up there, and it's been exciting to see what happens. But, we'll continue to be on more and more platforms and global. It's our big push this season for season 3 is to be global. And we're already in 170 countries. And in, 100 and something languages, subtitles in that many languages. That's mostly all through the app, because obviously an app can go global. But we're continuing to get more international partners and stuff like that, so the show can be worldwide on a lot of different platforms.
Yeah, I had no idea about the app, so that's I'm going to look that up after we finish this recording. So I got one last question for you as we wrap up. So, you're in Hollywood Central. The Dallas Metroplex, as I like to call it, Hollywood Central. So as you look back over the last 20 years, building a faith-based production company, so no action thrillers in Hollywood, faith-based in Hollywood Central. Did you ever have any doubts? Did you ever face any uncertainties? I know you're married and you've got kids and you're trying to provide for them. And where did your strength come from? Did you ever doubt, personal doubts, have doubts that was going to happen, uncertainties? And how did you get the strength to muscle through that? And I'm not talking the strength that, you were out there, running people over at Pomona College as a fullback or anything.
It's a great question because, at the end of the day, and I think you can attest to this, I have failed 10 times more than I've succeeded. And I think what really drove me is when I realized that this was what I was supposed to do, right? And for me, with my faith, it was almost like a calling. Like when I knew that God was like, you're going to go make movies, like I never doubted that. And so the doubt of what I was supposed to do was never there, but the doubt on being successful was always there. And to be honest with it, even is now. But I think that's just something that if you're not smart enough to know it could all go away tomorrow, well, then you probably have a rude awakening coming, right? And that's always been my biggest thing. But also with my faith, I was always like, you know what? God, if you called me to do this, then it's kind of on you, right? And I don't say that in a cocky way. I say, Lord, if you called me to do this, if this is what I'm supposed to do, well, then I'm going to do that. Now, I failed and I have messed up and I've made wrong decisions and I've done all that. But I also look at all of those things as kind of stepping stones. Like I actually enjoy, I say that say that loosely. I enjoy failure in the sense that even when you fail, you probably learn more than when you succeed. And that's always been a big thing for me. I almost strive for that because it's like, well, let me fail as fast as possible so then I can succeed and get those things out of the way and learn those lessons that need to be had. But I'm also of the opinion, and the Bible says, faith without works is dead. So I'm not a fan of people that use their faith to kind of go, well, if God wills it, then it's just going to happen. And I'm going to sit back and it's just going to go and da-da-da-da. I'm like, no. If God called you, you better work hard, because why would he just he's not going to hand you anything. And the world doesn't hand you anything either. So it kind of goes hand in hand. And so that was just the big thing, is that I never doubted what I was supposed to do, but how to get there. And then to your point, I did get married. I do have children. I do have bills to pay. I do have all those things. So honestly, for the longest time, I had every odd job you can think of, from waiting tables. I was a personal trainer for many years. And if anything, for me, I always looked for the job that created opportunity to do what I was called to do. So if you think about those things, waiting tables, bartending, personal training, you kind of make your own schedule and you can kind of do whatever you want. And so that's what I would do. I would take time off. I'd go make a movie, and obviously I'd be getting paid to make these movies. I just wasn't being paid enough for it to be a full-time job. And until it got to the point where I literally kind of took that leap to go, I'm going into this full time and I'm not having any other jobs, which was probably, I don't know, almost 10, 12, 15 years ago now, when I finally made that leap to go, I'm doing nothing else but making movies. This is all I'm going to do. But all that time, it was always a big stressor a little bit, right? And as a young married couple, but I love to tell the story, and I love to brag on my wife on this. Amanda, my wife, and she's been beside me through all of this. And honestly, the biggest turning point, I like to say, I say this tongue in cheek, my failure was her fault, but my success was also her fault. And I say that meaning that when I knew that this is what I was called to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to make movies. And I'm sure when Amanda and I first met, she was like, "Oh, that's cool. He's a movie producer. And it's so cool and sexy and all those things." And then she's like, "Well, where's the money that goes along with that, right? We got to pay our bills there." And so if anything, in our early stages of marriage, and Amanda likes to talk about this too, that she doubted and she fought, and she's like, "Why are you leaving me home? And where's the money? And where's this? And maybe you're not supposed to do this." And there was a lot of kind of arguments early on in our marriage, but there was a time where literally, and she was honestly just praying about, like, "Lord, what's going on?" And God just kind of got a hold of her and kind of wrecked her a little bit and just kind of said, "Chad's not your provider. I'm your provider. I'm the one that's supposed to be taking care of you. If you're my daughter and you have faith in me, I'm the one that does that." And honestly, that was the turning point. And it literally is something that is marked on the timeline of our marriage and of our lives, is when she realized that this was our calling, not my calling. This is what we do. We do this together. And whether it's our job or raising our kids or whatever, everything, right? You do it as a unit when you're married. You don't do them independently of each other. And that was the moment. And you can look at my career, and there was a huge turning point in my career. That's when I went full time. That's when the success started coming. And obviously it's continued to build over those years. And that was such a huge, huge thing. And so again, I kind of blame her for now the success that we get to see and obviously be a part of. But obviously we've also are hopefully humble enough to go, again, tomorrow it could be gone. And even with The Chosen, we kind of joke and go, well, the people tomorrow could kind of go, "You know what? We're all done. We don't want to pay for it anymore. We still want to watch your show, but we're not paying for it anymore." And that could all go away too. And so, but when you've learned to be abased, and now you can learn to be abound, and now you just got to kind of find that happy medium and just be excited to be in the moment. And so that's the big thing for me. I love hard work. I love challenge. I love the impossible. And I tell people all the time, man, you better know that you know that you know. And then once you know, go do it and don't doubt. It's probably not a popular saying, but I've always been a proponent of, if you have a fallback plan, you're probably going to fall back because there's a fallback plan versus, I don't know. Like, I even say that now. And that's why your question earlier was a tough one for me to answer, because honestly, I don't know what else I would do if I didn't do this. Now, sure, I go do the odd job and stuff, but those aren't necessarily, and some of those are kind of career pursuits. But for me, I never saw myself waiting tables forever. I never saw myself being a personal trainer forever. And I know a lot of people that have careers in that and obviously do quite well, but it was never an option for me. It was only there to get me to the goal that I had. And that's what I stuck to.
Well, Chad, thanks for this time today. I think you've given people a lot to take away. Not to mention, I still have a mental picture of you in a parka in Antarctica dancing with a penguin. So
now I've got to make a movie in Antarctica. That's what I got to do. That's project. So just to be able to fulfill that vision, we got to go do that.
To our audience out there, that was Chad Gundersen. He's been producing films for over 25 years. He started his first film company while in college at the University of North Texas, where he founded Night and Day Films in the year 2000. Going out on his own in 2006, Chad started Gundersen Entertainment, where he worked alongside studios like 20th Century Fox, Lionsgate, and Sony, and produced many life-changing films. And then in 2015, along with producer Chris Wan, Chad started Out of Order Studios, where they've produced numerous TV shows, animated projects, and feature films, and most proudly, in most groundbreaking TV series, The Chosen. And that wraps up today's episode of Fearless Leadership. If you enjoy the show, and I hope you do, make sure you take a second to subscribe so you automatically get my new shows when they drop. Also, if you do have a minute, I'd love if you left us a review so more folks like yourself can discover the show. And remember, until next time, have the courage to fail and the faith to succeed.
This has been Fearless Leadership with Brendan Keegan. If you want to learn to live and lead fearlessly, go to brendanpkeegan.com. Fearless Leadership is a production of Forbes Books.